Before you listen any further, I need you to understand what these words are meant to be. This is not someone speaking about God from a distance or explaining spirituality from the outside. What you are hearing is something quieter than that, something placed gently but urgently on my heart for you in this moment. This message is for the part of you that has been carrying too much silently for far too long. So, chosen one, sit down for a moment and let yourself be still. Let your body stop bracing against life for a few minutes. Let your shoulders loosen, your jaw unclench, and your hands rest open for once, because what is coming into your life cannot be forced through tension, effort, or overthinking. It can only be received. Somewhere along the way, this world taught you that everything meaningful had to be earned through surviving, proving, and staying emotionally guarded. But this next season is asking something different from you. It is asking you to loosen your grip instead of tightening it. Be still and listen carefully. You have been carrying more than difficult circumstances. The disappointments were real, and the silence was real. But what exhausted you most was wondering whether any of it actually meant something at all. Whether all the mornings you forced yourself to keep going while emotionally empty, all the prayers whispered into quiet rooms, all the nights you stayed hopeful in private, were being heard. There were moments you stopped explaining what you were feeling because carrying it silently became easier than trying to make invisible pain understandable to other people. But hear this slowly. Every one of those mornings mattered. Every silent act of endurance mattered. Every moment you almost gave up quietly but kept moving anyway was seen. None of it was wasted. Not the delays, not the confusion, not even the seasons where you felt emotionally numb and wondered if your faith was fading. You are not listening to this by accident. Something deeper than coincidence brought you here, to this exact message, at this exact point in your life. Because what is approaching your life is not small. This is not another temporary emotional high that disappears by morning. What is moving toward you requires open hands and a version of you that no longer grips life in fear every second. And if you are honest, part of you already feels that. You keep checking your outer life for proof that anything is changing and finding very little. The same routines, the same unanswered questions, the same unfinished situations. Yet underneath all of that, something in you refuses to panic the way it used to. That is the part one wants you to pay attention to, because the deeper part of you already senses the shift before your visible life catches up to it. You have been trying to explain this feeling to yourself for weeks now, maybe longer. Wondering if you are healing or simply becoming numb, wondering whether this quietness inside you is peace or exhaustion. Let me answer that clearly. What you are feeling is real. It is the way the atmosphere changes right before rain finally breaks after heavy heat. The way a room softens before someone important walks through the door. Your spirit has been sensing movement long before your circumstances could confirm it. And despite every season that taught you to protect yourself from hoping too much again, your soul still recognized it. That matters more than you realize. Some of you have even noticed your prayers changing recently. You stopped begging the way you used to, and stopped repeating the same desperate words trying to force heaven to respond. At first, that shift scared you because you wondered if you were becoming disconnected or spiritually tired. But the deeper truth is this: your spirit was learning how to rest before your mind understood why. Something inside you stopped fighting for survival every second. And strangely enough, that shift happened at the same time unseen things began moving into place around your life. That is not coincidence. That is alignment. Because clenched hands cannot receive anything new, and a nervous system trapped in survival cannot recognize peace when it finally arrives. What is coming toward you now will require openness more than effort. Some of you have been pulling away from people lately, and the hardest part is that you cannot fully explain why. It was never arrogance or bitterness. It felt more like your soul stopped fitting comfortably inside certain conversations, environments, and versions of yourself you used to force just to keep connection alive. And that has confused you, because you still care about people. You still answer messages and show up when you can. But somewhere deep inside you realized constantly surrounding yourself with noise was leaving you emotionally drained in ways you could no longer ignore. So you started stepping back a little, speaking less and protecting your energy without fully meaning to. Then came the guilt, because you questioned yourself more than anyone else ever could. Some nights you even missed people you no longer felt safe being fully yourself around. But hear me clearly now. There is a difference between loneliness and being set apart. Loneliness feels like abandonment. Being set apart feels unfamiliar because your spirit is preparing for a different kind of belonging than the one you settled for before. What is happening right now is not punishment. It is transition. The distance you created was not rejection, it was direction. And even if part of you still feels guilty for changing, another part already knows this season could not continue the way it was. You are becoming more honest about what exhausts you, more protective of your peace, and more aware of which connections leave your body heavy after every interaction. That awareness matters deeply. Some of you are carrying another feeling too. A strange combination of peace and grief existing at the same time. It confused you because nothing terrible necessarily happened. Yet there are moments you feel emotional watching your own life change shape in front of you. You are mourning familiar versions of yourself, familiar routines, and familiar survival patterns. Even certain pains became familiar enough to feel strangely safe. And every ending carries grief, even the endings you prayed for. But this is important. What is ending is not your life. It is the smaller chapter your soul could no longer stay inside. And part of you already senses that what opens next will require a completely different version of you to walk through it. Some of you have also been experiencing unusual dreams lately. Not chaotic dreams or random mental noise, but the kind that stay with you after you wake up. The kind you carry in your chest all day without fully understanding why. Dreams that felt symbolic, almost sacred. And you barely talked about them because part of you worried they sounded irrational or dramatic. So you carried those moments privately, replaying them quietly, while trying to convince yourself they did not matter as much as they felt like they did. But they mattered. There are things your spirit recognizes before your logical mind can fully explain them. Some messages arrive softly through feelings, images, symbols, and sudden knowing. And maybe the deepest exhaustion of all has been this: you have been waiting for so long that the waiting itself started becoming part of your identity. You adapted to disappointment so many times that you stopped fully imagining what life would feel like beyond survival mode. You became the strong one, the patient one, the one who keeps enduring. But underneath all that strength, there was also fatigue, because carrying hope for years without visible evidence changes a person. And this is why what is happening now feels so disorienting. Because the shift approaching your life is not only changing what arrives around you, it is changing who you are becoming once it arrives. The waiting season was never only about delay, it was shaping your capacity to hold what once would have overwhelmed you. The pulling away, the emotional fatigue, the strange calmness, the dreams, the quiet feeling that something invisible has already begun shifting underneath your life. None of these experiences are disconnected. Your spirit has been recognizing a threshold long before your circumstances confirmed it. And that threshold is closer now than it has ever been. You have been listening this whole time, and that matters more than you think. People leave messages like this every day when it only brushes the surface. But when something speaks directly to the hidden places inside a person, they stay. And something inside you already knows why you stayed. There is something deeper I need to speak to now. Something very specific about this feeling that something is near. Many of you have been living inside a quiet contradiction for a long time. One part of you feels the shift clearly, even when your outer life gives almost no evidence of it. In quiet moments, in waves of emotion, in sudden calm that makes no logical sense, something inside you keeps whispering, your life is about to change. But another part of you has become careful, because this is not the first time you have felt nearness. You have carried hope before, only to watch weeks become months, and months become years. After enough disappointment, the heart learns how to protect itself quietly. So now, even while you sense movement, another voice inside you says, do not believe too deeply yet. And honestly, that protective layer makes sense. Hope started feeling expensive after a while. There were moments you questioned your own discernment and wondered if you were imagining signs simply because your heart needed relief from the waiting. But listen carefully now. Those earlier feelings of nearness were not false. You were sensing movement correctly. What confused you was the form it arrived in. You expected the answer to look a certain way, and when life unfolded differently, You assumed the sensing itself had failed, but it did not fail, and this time something about the feeling is different. Not louder or more dramatic, quieter, steadier, almost like your spirit has stopped trying to convince your mind and simply started knowing. That matters because the deepest shifts often arrive without chaos announcing them first. Sometimes the real sign is the calm that appears before visible evidence exists. Many of you have felt that calm recently. You have sensed that things are quietly being arranged beyond your sight. Like conversations are unfolding that your name has already entered before your body does. Like doors are preparing to open while you are still standing in front of old closed ones, and your spirit has been picking up on it. That feeling is not irrational. You are not forcing yourself into this next season through positivity or desperation. In many ways, you have actually become quieter, more surrendered, less frantic than before. And strangely enough, that inner stillness is part of how you know this season is real, because your outer life has not fully changed yet. To the people around you, everything probably still looks mostly the same, but inside you, something has already begun shifting. It feels less like excitement and more like internal movement, a pressure that is not anxiety, a weight that somehow carries peace inside it. And the reason your visible life has not caught up yet is not because you were forgotten. It is because what is being built requires thoroughness. Certain blessings arrive too early and end up overwhelming the person receiving them. But you are changing. That is what this waiting season has actually been doing. It has been enlarging your capacity. And when what has been prepared for you finally enters your life, you will understand something you cannot fully see from inside the waiting itself. The magnitude of what is coming is not only about the blessing, it is about who you had to become in order to carry it without breaking underneath it. You were never being punished by delay. You were being strengthened through formation. And there is something ancient connected to this part of the human experience. More than 3,300 years ago, within the Vedic tradition, a sound structure was preserved to quiet the internal noise created by constant striving and reopen the part of the mind that still knows how to receive. It was never meant to be performance or spiritual theater. Its purpose was restoration. Some of you felt something soften inside the moment this was mentioned, not because your mind fully understands it yet, but because your body is tired of living in tension all the time. You spent so long holding everything together that peace itself started feeling unfamiliar. Even rest began to feel unsafe after a while. And for those whose spirit recognizes this kind of restoration, there is a path available in the description and pinned comment below this message. Not pressure or urgency, just an open door for the people who feel something real moving inside them while hearing this. But first, I need you to remember why this season has been so long. These seasons were never only building endurance inside you. They were building capacity, the ability to hold what is coming into your life without losing yourself once it arrives. Because some things arrive too early and break people. Part of you wanted the blessing deeply, while another part stayed emotionally braced for disappointment. Hope started feeling expensive after a while, so your spirit learned how to protect itself. That is why this season took longer than you expected. Not because you were forgotten, but because your inner world was being expanded carefully. Every delay stretched something deeper than patience, and every closed door exposed places where fear was still shaping your life underneath your faith. I know there were nights you quietly wondered if you missed your moment somewhere. Watching other people move forward while your own life felt suspended changed something inside you. Some of you became so skilled at functioning that people stopped realizing how tired you actually were. But none of that meant you were abandoned. You were being prepared with precision. And what needs to settle into your spirit now is this. A major part of that formation is already complete. What is coming toward you is not payment for perfect behavior. It is a gift. Some of you delayed your own ability to receive because you kept trying to become worthy enough first. But life rarely moves in that order. Sometimes the blessing arrives first, and the expansion happens because of it. There are people moving toward your life now whose presence will feel peaceful instead of emotionally draining. You will notice yourself relaxing instead of performing, and leaving conversations feeling lighter instead of exhausted. Another movement unfolding now is provision, but not through the door you spent most of your energy trying to force open. Many of you interpreted closed doors as rejection when they were actually protection. What is meant for your next season is already being prepared. You do not need to force it into existence through anxiety or overexertion. Your responsibility now is different. Stay open enough to recognize it when it arrives. And there is also restoration unfolding around your life. Something you grieved deeply and eventually stopped speaking about because holding on to hope became too painful. But what was taken from you was not the final version of what was meant for your life. The version returning to you could not have been carried by the person you were back then. You were still becoming someone capable of holding it without fear consuming it from the inside. So what returns will feel deeper, healthier, and more aligned than before. You are also beginning to carry a different kind of authority. Not authority built on titles or approval, but the kind formed quietly through grief, disappointment, rejection, and survival. People will feel it before they fully understand it. Conversations will shift around you. Certain words you speak will land more deeply than you intended them to. Not because you are trying to command attention, but because there is weight inside your presence now. That weight was formed through every season you thought was breaking you. You survived things that made your spirit deeper and more emotionally honest. And now that depth is beginning to move through your voice, your discernment, and your presence. You have been in an intentional season of formation. The waiting was not punishment, and the delays were not proof your life was forgotten. Before the world trained your nervous system into constant proving and overthinking, your spirit knew how to receive naturally. But modern life slowly trained you away from that state. Many of you became so used to surviving that your body forgot what openness even felt like. Still, that suppression is not permanent. The ancient sages understood that the mind cannot receive clearly while trapped in constant internal noise. What they called the receiving channel, modern science now recognizes through calmer alpha brain states. And what they described as striving noise now appears as constant overthinking and emotional tension. That is why the wealth signal was created. A 5-minute audio designed to quiet the striving state inside the mind and restore the openness modern life trained out of you. Its purpose is not hype or motivation. Its purpose is restoration. Because the deeper truth is this: the blockage was never your lack of worth. Most of you were never failing spiritually. You were exhausted neurologically after surviving pressure and disappointment for so long that peace itself started feeling unfamiliar. And this changes the way you understand receiving. The people who receive most deeply are rarely the ones forcing hardest. They are the ones whose inner channel is finally open enough to hold what arrives. Many people who use the wealth signal do not describe dramatic overnight change. They describe something quieter than that. Less overthinking, more peace in their body. A growing sense that life no longer feels like constant resistance. The signal was never absent. The noise was simply covering it. And if your spirit recognizes itself in what was shared here, the path is in the description and pinned comment below this message. And for those still listening, there is something deeper I need to name now. There is a quiet pattern living inside many of you who survived long seasons of disappointment and emotional endurance. Its name is unworthiness. Not the loud kind that destroys confidence completely. The quieter kind that struggles to believe anything truly good could stay. Some of you became so accustomed to disappointment that doubting good things started feeling safer than trusting them. For many of you, this pattern became so familiar you barely noticed it anymore. Giving felt safer than receiving, and carrying other people emotionally felt easier than believing someone could finally hold you too. Serving became comfortable because needing anything openly once felt dangerous. And that did not happen by accident. There was a season where wanting too much led to disappointment, silence, rejection, or emotional withdrawal. Taking up space as your full self slowly taught your nervous system to become smaller than it really was, so you adapted. You learned how to need less, expect less, and hope more quietly. Part of you believed smaller expectations would protect you from deeper pain, and for a while they did. But that protection cannot lead you where you are going now. What once protected your heart is now limiting your ability to receive. The guardedness that kept you emotionally safe is becoming the very thing blocking what is trying to enter your life. You do not need to force yourself fully open overnight, only to stop pushing away every good thing the moment it reaches for you. Just enough to stop shrinking every time life asks you to take up more emotional, spiritual, or relational space. just enough to believe the blessing might include you too, because you are allowed to receive, not only pour endlessly into everyone else. Many of you spent years making yourself emotionally smaller because disappointment felt safer than hope. You softened your dreams before life could break them and minimized your gifts before people could reject them. But the version of you that survived those years is not the version meant to lead you forward now. Type the words, "I receive." If something inside you just loosened while hearing this, let it become a quiet agreement between you and the part of yourself finally ready to stop hiding from what it has been asking for all along. And before this message closes, there is one more thing I need to speak over you. Not about your circumstances, but about who you are underneath the exhaustion and survival patterns. You are a light bearer, and your presence has shifted emotional atmospheres your entire life without fully understanding how. People feel calmer around you. Conversations soften around you, and hope quietly returns in places that felt emotionally heavy before you arrived. Deep down, you have always sensed this about yourself, even when you lacked language for it. You notice emotional truths others avoid and feel what sits beneath the surface of conversations most people miss. That sensitivity was never weakness. It was part of your assignment. You are also a voice, not because you are louder than others, but because something honest moves through you that gives language to what others were silently carrying. Your honesty gives people permission to feel what they spent years suppressing. You are also a cycle breaker. Some of you carry emotional patterns in your family line that existed long before you were born. Fear, silence, scarcity, emotional suppression, generational exhaustion. And whether you realized it or not, your spirit entered this life, carrying the assignment to interrupt those patterns instead of repeating them. That is why your life often felt heavier than people around you understood. You were not only surviving for yourself, you were confronting things generations before you normalized, and even though that responsibility exhausted you at times, it was never punishment. These are not affirmations meant to convince you of something false. They are descriptions of who you already are. The assignment was woven into you long before your life became visible. And what is coming toward your life now is not a reward, it is the support required to carry your assignment fully. So before we close, picture yourself on the other side of this season, not the exhausted version still searching for signs that life is changing. Picture the version of you that has already received. Notice how your hands feel open instead of tense, and how your eyes feel calmer, less exhausted from constantly scanning life for evidence that something is wrong. The peace around you no longer feels empty, it feels full. That version of you is not imaginary, it is the version your spirit has been moving toward through every difficult season you survived. Every delay, disappointment and silent prayer were shaping you toward that life, and the distance between you and that version has never been smaller than it is right now. So before this message closes, I need you to hear this clearly. I see you. Not the version that performs strength for everyone else. I mean the version that sits alone carrying exhaustion, that is difficult to explain. The version that smiled in conversations and still went home heavy afterward. The version that kept praying quietly after disappointment, made hope feel dangerous. That version was seen the entire time. Every silent morning mattered. Every season where you felt emotionally isolated, exhausted, or forgotten was witnessed fully. You were never abandoned in the silence. You were being preserved inside it. Some of you interpreted your hidden season as rejection when it was actually protection. Your waiting was construction, and the construction is almost complete now. You were made for this exact moment in your life, not a more polished version of it. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are standing exactly where you need to be for what is unfolding now. Release the years of carrying invisible heaviness and the grief of the almost breakthroughs that dissolved in front of you. Those seasons mattered deeply, but your hands cannot fully hold the future while remaining wrapped around the past. What felt like lost time was still formation time, and formation is never wasted. You did not survive these seasons only to become smaller. You became deeper, wiser, steadier, and more emotionally honest than before. And what is moving toward your life now was designed for this version of you specifically. Type the words "I am ready" if something inside you just stopped resisting what it has secretly been asking for. Let the quiet settle for a moment and allow what was spoken to move deeper than surface emotion. Something shifted while you were listening. Your circumstances may not reflect it fully yet, but your spirit already knows this moment mattered. Something was named in you that cannot go unnamed again. And the truth is, you did not stay here this long by accident. You stayed because something inside you recognized itself in these words. Some part of you knew this message was speaking directly into places you rarely allow people to see. If this message gave language to something you have been carrying silently, let your like be your agreement with what shifted inside you today. Stay connected if you want to continue receiving messages like this as your next season unfolds. And before you leave, think about this carefully. Someone came to your mind while listening today. Someone who has been unusually quiet lately while carrying something heavier than they know how to explain. Send this to them. Sometimes one moment of recognition changes the direction of an entire season. And remember this as you leave tonight. You are not leaving a message. You are leaving an old version of yourself behind.